good evening, and welcome back. Tonight we drift far to the north, across cold, quiet seas, to a world of longships, low fires, and stories carried softly through the dark. Wherever you are, settle in, let your shoulders drop, and allow your thoughts to slow. Tonight's story is drawn from the early age of Norse exploration, a time when the edges of the world were uncertain and the horizon held more questions than answers. But this is not a tale of kings or great battles. It is quieter than that. It is the story of a young navigator and a journey that changed him in a way no map could record. Long before the sea routes were known, before lands like Iceland and Greenland were spoken of with familiarity, there lived a boy named Eric. He grew up along the western coast of Norway, where the mountains rise steeply from the sea and the water is almost always cold. His home was simple: wood walls, a low roof, the constant scent of salt carried in from the fjord. His father was a fisherman, a quiet man, shaped by routine and necessity. To him, the sea was not mystery. It was work, survival, something to endure. But Eric was different. From a young age, he found himself drawn not to the nets or the boats, but to the horizon. He would sit for long stretches on the rocks, watching the slow rise and fall of the tide, listening to the distant cry of seabirds. And always, his eyes would drift outward, to that thin grey line where the sea met the sky. He did not speak much about it. It was not a loud curiosity, not a restless urge. It was something quieter, deeper, a feeling that something lay beyond. In the evenings, when the work was done and the fires were lit, travellers sometimes passed through their village. Old sailors, traders, men whose voices carried the weight of distance. Eric would sit near them, silent, listening. They spoke of Iceland, a land of fire and ice, where steam rose from the earth itself. They spoke of Greenland, harsher still, yet dotted with hidden valleys and narrow stretches of green. And sometimes, when their voices dropped low and the room grew still, they spoke of something else. Land, farther west, not ice, but forest. Not rock, but soil. A place where the air felt different, and the wind did not bite as sharply. Most people dismissed these stories. Too far, too uncertain, too unlikely. But Eric did not. He carried those words with him, quietly, the way one carries a small, steady flame. Then, one late summer, something changed. A ship arrived in the fjord, unlike the others. It was broader, heavier, built not for short journeys, but for distance. Its sail was worn, carefully repaired in many places, and its crew moved with a calm confidence that did not need to be spoken aloud. They had travelled far. Eric knew it the moment he saw them. That night he listened again, not to stories filled with exaggeration, but to something quieter. They spoke of sailing beyond Greenland, of pushing into waters where the skies seemed wider and the sea deeper. And then, almost simply, they said it. They had found land. Real land, green, soft, alive. Something settled inside Eric in that moment. Not excitement, not fear. A decision. The winter that followed was long and cold, but Eric worked harder than he ever had before. He mended nets, carried timber, saved what little he could. And when spring finally returned, when the ice loosened and the fjord opened once more, he approached the crew. He asked for a place on their ship. They studied him. Young, unproven, quiet. But there was something else, a steadiness that could not be taught. They agreed. The journey began beneath a pale sky, the kind that never fully brightens. The sea stretched endlessly before them. Days passed in rhythm, the creak of wood, the pull of oars, the quiet snap of wind filling the sail. At night, they lay beneath the stars, closer and sharper than Eric had ever seen. He learned quickly, not through force, but through watching. He watched how the captain read the water, how he noticed small changes in the wind, how he followed birds, trusting that they always knew where land might be. There were storms, sudden, powerful, without warning. Waves rose like dark walls, crashing against the ship, the wood groaning beneath them. For a time, there was only movement and noise and cold. But always the storm passed, and afterward the sea would settle again, as if nothing had happened. Weeks went by. Greenland appeared, then faded behind them. Still, they sailed west, into waters that felt different. The air carried a faint scent, unfamiliar, almost soft. And then, one morning, it happened. A voice from the front of the ship, quiet at first, then certain. Land. The crew gathered, eyes narrowing against the light, and there it was. Not ice, not jagged cliffs, but low hills, covered in green. Trees, tall and full, swaying gently in the breeze. They approached slowly. No one spoke much, as if sound itself might disturb the moment. When the ship finally reached the shore, there was no cheer, no shout of victory, only silence. Eric stepped down first. His boots sank slightly into the earth, softer than any ground he had known. The air felt warmer, quieter. Even the wind seemed kinder. They explored for days, rivers filled with fish, forests thick with life, open fields stretching under a softer sky. Some of the men spoke of returning at once, of claiming the land, of telling others. But Eric felt something else. Not urgency, stillness. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long golden light across the hills, he walked alone. The forest rustled gently around him. Birds called in unfamiliar tones. And for the first time in his life, he felt no pull toward the horizon, no quiet longing, only a sense of arrival. History would later call this place Vinland, a land reached, briefly settled, and eventually left behind. But stories allow us something softer. Eric did return home. He spoke of what he had seen, but only enough for others to follow, but not enough to capture what he had truly felt. Because some places are not meant to be fully explained. They are meant to be remembered. And in the years that followed, when the nights grew long and the sea restless, he would close his eyes and return there. Not with sails, not with oars, but with memory. A quiet shore at the edge of the known world, where the wind was soft and the journey finally felt complete. And now, as this story fades, let your thoughts drift just as gently, like a small boat carried across still water, with nowhere left to go and nothing left to do. Rest well.